and probably others. In other words, the fluorides of all the non-metals that can form fluorides. The phosphorus pentafluoride rains out when the weather gets cold. There is also free oxygen, but no chlorine. That would be liquid, except in very hot weather. It sometimes appears combined with fluorine in chlorine trifluoride. The atmosphere has a slight yellowish tinge. 3. Soil and geology. Above the metallic core of the planet, the lithosphere consists exclusively of fluorides of the metals. There are no oxides, sulfides, silicates, or chlorides. There are small deposits of such things as bromine trifluoride, but these have no great importance. Since fluorides are weak mechanically, the terrain is flattish. Nothing tough like granite to build mountains out of. Since the fluoride ion is colorless, the color of the soil depends upon the predominant metal in the region. As most of the light metals also have colorless ions, the colored rocks are rather rare. 4. The waters under the earth. They consist of liquid hydrofluoric acid, HF. It melts at -83 degrees Celsius and boils at 19.4 degrees Celsius. In it are dissolved varying quantities of metallic and non-metallic fluorides, such as boron trifluoride, sodium fluoride, etc. When the oceans and lakes freeze, they do so from the bottom up, so there is no layer of ice over free liquid. 5. Plants and plant metabolism. The plants function by photosynthesis, taking HF as water from the soil, and carbon tetrafluoride as the equivalent of carbon dioxide from the air, to produce chain compounds such as this diagram, and at the same time liberating free fluorine. This reaction could only take place on a planet receiving lots of ultraviolet, because so much energy is needed to break up carbon tetrafluoride and hydrofluoric acid. The plant catalyst, doubling for the magnesium in chlorophyll, is nickel. The plants are colored in various ways. They get their metals from the soil. 6. Animals and animal metabolism. Animals depend upon two main reactions for their energy and for the construction of their harder tissues. The soft tissues are about the same as the plant molecules, but the hard tissues are produced by the reaction shown in these two diagrams, resulting in a Teflon boned and shelled organism. He's going to be tough to do much with. Diatoms leave strata of powdered Teflon. The main energy reaction is shown in this diagram. The blood catalyst metal is titanium, which results in colorless arterial blood and violet venous, as the titanium flips back and forth between tri and tetravalent states. 7. Effect on intruding items. Water decomposes into oxygen and hydrofluoric acid. All organic matter, earth type, converts into oxygen, carbon tetrafluoride, hydrofluoric acid, and etc., with more or less speed. A rubber gas mask lasts about an hour. Glass first frosts and then disappears. Plastics act like rubber, only a little slower. The heavy metals, iron, nickel, copper, monel, and etc., stand up well, forming an insoluble coat of fluorides at first, and then doing nothing else. 8. Why go there? Large natural crystals of fluorides, such as calcium difluoride, titanium tetrafluoride, zirconium tetrafluoride, are extremely useful in optical instruments of various forms. Uranium appears as uranium hexafluoride, all ready for the diffusion process. Compounds of such nonmetals as boron are obtainable from the atmosphere in high purity with very little trouble. All metallurgy must be electrical. There are considerable deposits of beryllium, and they occur in high concentration in its ores. End of introduction number 2. Uller Uprising by Henry Beam Piper. Prologue. On Satan's Footstool. The big armor tender vibrated gently and not unpleasantly as the contragravity field alternated on and off, occasionally varying its normal rate of 500 to the second when some thermal updraft lifted the vehicle and the automatic radar altimeter control acted to alter the frequency and lower it again. Sometimes it rocked slightly like a boat on the water, and in the big screen which served in lieu of a window at the front of the control cabin, the dingy yellow landscape would seem to tilt a little. If unshielded human eyes could have endured the rays of Nu Puppis, Niflheim's primary, the whole scene would have appeared a vivid St. Patrick's Day green, the effect of the blue predominant light on the yellow atmosphere. The outside visor pickup, however, was fitted with filters which blocked out the gamma rays and X-rays and most of the ultraviolet rays, and added the longer light waves of red and orange, which were absent, so that things looked much as they would have under the light of a G0 type star like Sol. The air was faintly yellow, the sky was yellow with a greenish cast, and the clouds were green-gray. 1,000 feet below, the local equivalent of a forest grew, the trees topped with huge ragged leaves, looking like 100-foot stalks of celery. There would be animal life down there too, little round things 4 inches across, like 8-legged crabs, gnawing at the vegetation, and bigger things 2 feet long, with articulated shell armor, and 16 legs which fed on the smaller herbivores. Beyond, in the middle ground, was open grassland, if one could so call a mat of worm-like colorless or pastel-tinted sprouts, and a river meandered through it. On the skyline, 50 miles away, was a range of low dunes and hills, none more than 1,000 feet high. No human had ever set foot on the surface or breathed the air of Niflheim. To have done so would have been instant death. The air was a mixture of free fluorine and fluoride gases. The soil was metallic fluorides, damp with acid rains, and the river was pure hydrofluoric acid. Even the ordinary spacesuit would have been no protection. The glass and rubber and plastic would have disintegrated in a matter of minutes. People came to Niflheim and worked the mines and uranium refineries and chemical plants, but they did so inside power-driven and contragravity lifted armor, and they lived on artificial satellites 2,000 miles off-planet. This vehicle, for instance, was built and protected as no spaceship ever had to be, completely insulated and entered only through a triple airlock, an outer lock which would be evacuated outward after it was closed, a middle lock kept evacuated at all times, and an inner lock evacuated into the interior of the vehicle before the middle lock could be opened. Niflheim was worse than airless, much worse. The chief engineer sat at his controls, making the minor lateral adjustments in the vehicle's position which were not possible to the automatic controls. One of the radio men was receiving from the orbital base. The other was saying over and over, in an exasperatedly patient voice, "Dr. Murillo! Dr. Murillo! Please come in, Dr. Murillo!" At his own panel of instruments, a small man with grizzled black hair around a bald crown and a grizzled beard chewed nervously at the stump of a dead cigar and listened intently to what was, or for what wasn't, coming in to his headset receiver. A couple of assistants checked dials and refreshed their memories from notebooks and peered anxiously into the big screen. A large, plump-faced young man in soiled khaki shirt and shorts with extremely hairy legs was doodling on his notepad and eating candy out of a bag, and a black-haired girl in a suit of coveralls 3 sizes too big for her, and apparently not much of anything else, lounged with one knee hooked over her chair arm, staring into the screen at the distant horizon. "Dr. Murillo! Dr. The radio man broke off in mid-syllable and listened for a moment. "I hear you, doctor. Go ahead." Then a moment later, "What's your position now, doctor?" "I can see them," the girl said, lifting a hand in front of her. "At 2 o'clock, about one of my hand's breadths above the horizon." The man with the grizzled beard put his face into the fur around the eyepiece of the telescopic visor and twisted a dial. You have